Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at a Pokemon that makes me very happy indeed, because we're getting a Chandelure VMAX. I woke up this morning to a message from the lovely Antoine Boulet, who does, of course, provide our translation, going, hey, isn't this a Wussy card? I'm like, yeah. It's not necessarily my play style, but it is absolutely one of my favorites. I love me some Chandelure. Chandelure is awesome. So what we got here is a new V and a V Max. We'll start off with the Pokemon V here. And in terms of the stats, we've got ourselves 200 HP, which, I mean, V's go from 180 to 220, but it still feels low. Retreat cost of 2, which is not ideal, but we do have Air Balloon, so we can get around it. And a weakness to water, which is not terrible, but there are still way too many Inteleon running around for my liking, so... And there's like a billion different kind of Inteleon, and certainly the one from Sun and Moon can get a one-hit KO at least on the V, so I'm not loving it, I think is fair to say. And you are a fire Pokemon. Fire Pokemon does mean you're hitting weakness on things like Zacian. As metal Pokemon, all your metal Pokemon you will be hitting for weakness here. And similarly, you will be getting all of those grass Pokemon. I don't know, maybe Leafeon VMAX ends up really performing to its potential and being a good card in the future. But I'm not thinking that grass is going to be the best typing moving forward. And it is really sad to note that you are a fire Pokemon, but we're talking post-rotation here. So you're going to be missing out on stuff like Welder, for instance, which would have been really good for accelerating energy. But that's alright, we'll live around it. So what we've got here is one fire energy, confusion. And I don't like this. Like, literally confusion, that's it, that's all you get. One fire energy and you just get confusion. And the fact of the matter is, we've seen like a billion Pokemon over the years that for a single energy do some damage and confusion. And that's the kind of thing I want to have here. So I'm not loving it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. This doesn't seem good enough to me. I mean, even like Dene from Vivid Voltage here. Single energy, 10 damage plus confusion. And I know it's a non-evolving basic and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sorry, if you're giving me no damage or just giving me confusion, I'm not loving it. And don't get me wrong, confusion can still be really annoying. Your opponent has to flip a coin to attack. If they flip tails, they have to take 30 damage and they don't actually get to do the attack. It can be really annoying to be confused and decks can be built around it. But when you're not doing any damage to begin with, I'm sorry. I know it's a single energy attack, and I know it's on a basic Pokemon. These are things that I like, and I like confusion, but this just plain isn't good enough. But for one fire, one colorless energy, your opponent reveals their hand. This attack does 40 damage for each trainer card you find there. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Poltergeist is back. Of course, Poltergeist is only just leaving. It's become very trendy lately. It's become quite a popular tech to be putting things like Gengar and Mimikyu into their decks, especially things like Shadow Rider Calyrex decks. 2 energy, 50 damage for each trainer card you find in your opponent's hand. And it is worth pointing out here, we are talking trainer cards, we are not talking item cards. So, items and supporters and stadiums and all the different kinds of trainers will count here. Now, I should say we do actually still have Poltergeist post-rotation because Poltergeist has it, but you're talking 2 energy, 50 for each trainer on a 60 HP Pokemon. I applaud that it's there, but I think this is one of those maybe we don't get terribly excited about it because I don't think, put it this way, right? It's been out since Sword and Shield. If it was good, it would probably be seeing play. We do sometimes see a post-rotation bump, but I don't think that's going to happen here. Wouldn't mind being wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Would not mind being wrong. So is this good enough? Maybe. It's only 40 times is the problem. So if your opponent has, say, 5 cards in the hand and they're all trainers, that's still only 200 damage, and 220 is what you need to get a one-hit KO on Pokemon V generally. Now, if you're hitting for weakness against Metal or Grass Pokemon, then in that regard, you're hitting 80 for each trainer, and now we can talk. But I'm afraid it's a little bit awkward. Now, of course, there are things you can use here like Marnie. So if your opponent is trying to keep a very low hand, or your opponent has deliberately got rid of all their trainer cards, something like Marnie to give them a new 4-card hand is nice. Again, it's not ideal, because you're only giving them a 4-card hand. What you really need here is item lock, and I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, but post-rotation, we don't have a huge amount of item lock. But we'll get to that in a moment, because we need to take a quick look at the VMAX, because things are going to start looking a little bit familiar. We go up to 320 HP, which is honestly about average for a VMAX. We see 340, but 320 is fairly standard. Same retreat cost of 2, same water weakness, same fire typing. But we have a rather nice ability, Blinding Haze. While this Pokemon is in the active position, your opponent can't attach any Pokemon tools from their hand. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this ain't bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a reason to play Chandelure. I think it's cool, but I do not think it's a reason to play Chandelure, let's be perfectly clear. But it's a nice handy bonus. There are things like the aforementioned air balloon that your opponent is going to be trying to use to get their Pokemon out of the active position. And when you turn off air balloon, you can stick them in the active, and that's really rather lovely. Or maybe your opponent's trying to use something like Experience Share to keep their energy when they get KO'd. Well, that one's going away as well. There are a bunch of tools you can stop. Things like Cape of Toughness to try and get a bunch of extra HP. I'm not going to just sit here listing tools for the next 10 minutes. That would be weird. But my point here is that there are a whole bunch of rather useful tools running around, and none of them can be attached. If they are attached, they totally still work, but you can stop your opponent attaching them, and that's a handy bonus. But the attack here for 1 fire, 1 colorless energy is Max Poltergeist. Your opponent reveals their hand. This attack does 70 damage for each trainer card you find there. And this is more like it, because Chandelure V did 40. Gengar and Mimikyu did 50. This does 70. And this adds up very, very quickly. 2 trainer cards, you're doing 140. That's basically any single prize Pokemon. 3 trainer cards, that's 210. That is a lot of Pokemon V. If you add a Vitality Band, because you are allowed to attach tools, that'll be 220 and get basically every relevant Pokemon V, which will be rather lovely. To get VMAXs, you're still looking at 5, which is 350, and that is awkward, because like I say, you can use stuff like Marnie to give your opponent a new hand, but it's not ideal, I think is fair to say. But if your opponent ends up with a large hand at any point during the game, Chandelure can punish. And I know we've lost Welder, but you're talking 2 energy here. And like we saw with Victini VMAX, if you're only using 2 energy, this is absolutely doable. But like I said a moment ago with the Pokemon V, if you want to make the most of this kind of attack, you want to have item lock. And we've seen this a million times before. We could go right back to the Gengar from Stormfront, which honestly might not even be the original, but it's the earliest one I can remember at the moment. That was when I started playing back in the Diamond and Pearl era. And that was played with Vileplume and Spiritomb, so Spiritomb would get the early game item lock, and then that would be parlayed into the entire game item lock, and your opponent would basically not be able to do anything, and then you would come in and clear up. And the problem is, I've been over to pkmncards.com, which is a great website for searching for certain things, and the thing that I've searched for is item lock post-rotation. And it ain't looking pretty, ladies and gentlemen. There is exactly 1 option for item lock post-rotation. Like, literally 1. It is Vikavolt V. Everything else we've got is rotating. Now, there may well be more item lock in the future, and if we ever get more item lock, please keep my boy Chandelure in mind. But we got the Vikavolt from Darkness Ablaze that for 2 energy does 50 damage and stops your opponent playing any item cards from their hand. They can still play stadium supporters, etc., but they can't play items, so the theory is hopefully they build up a hand of items and you can punish with Chandelure. And maybe there is a deck where the early game is Vikavolt slowing them down and then Chandelure comes in to sweep. But as soon as you attack with Chandelure, you use the item lock and your opponent you know is going to play all their items down as fast as they possibly can. So Vikavolt's only ever really going to set you up for 1 KO, and it's a different kind of energy, and it's just a little bit awkward. And I love Chandelure, but the way I see Chandelure is a tech in fire decks. Get Chandelure VMAX out, get an energy on it, and if your opponent ever has too many trainer cards in hand, you attach a second energy and take a giant KO. And against good players, that's never going to happen, incidentally. Against good players, your opponent is always going to make sure that they play their item cards, etc. faster than they usually would, but then you're in a situation where your opponent is playing item cards faster than they usually would to try and slow you down, and that's a win for you. If you want to play Chandelure VMAX as its own deck, you're probably going to need some kind of item lock, and quite frankly, we don't have any item lock around at the moment. Cryogonal is rotating, Omastar is rotating, Behemoth is rotating, Luxio is rotating. We've actually had, up until now, a bunch of options for item lock. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, they are like all rotating out other than Vikavolt, and I don't think Vikavolt is good enough. I do, however, need to point out that if we look at the artwork, give me a Pokemon VMAX regular art, not the special art, which has got better artwork than this, because I'm telling you now, you can't. This has the best artwork of any regular Pokemon VMAX. Holy moly, it's absolutely beautiful. So let's go ahead and give this between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. It has a very useful ability and it has a Poltergeist attack that can do a huge amount of damage, but with no item lock in the game at the moment, I fear it's too easily played around. If we get decent item lock in the future, this becomes a 5 Wassie card and I'm not even joking. But I want to know what you think about this, ladies and gentlemen, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.